And I think it's more challenging for a new brand because the awareness is not there.
People tend to avoid doing that. There are several trust building issues. Actually, Royal Enfield does it pretty well. You may have seen the Royal Enfield thing. So it's a community. They're not selling bikes at all. If everyone is using AI, then everything is bad. Everyone will be mediocre. So there has to be some people who use AI better than other people do. How do I make you aware that I'm a product that you should consider? You will not get fooled or cheated.
I want to talk to you about ONDC. What is probably one misconception about ONDC? Hello and welcome to another episode of Expendable with Fibonacci X. Expendable is a platform where we meet topic experts, founders, investors, and try to demystify the process of venture building. Thank you for subscribing to us and please follow our content. Today we have a very special guest. We have Shubho Sengupta. He is a veteran in communication and digital marketing area with experience in both private and public sectors. He is currently advisor for digital marketing at ONDC's Nirmit Bharat initiatives. Before this, he was an advisor at Karmyogi Bharat. He has worked with top agencies like Ogilvy, JWT, and has contributed to campaigns for brands like Gillette, Pepsi, Coke, Motorola, and Star ESPN. Thank you, Shubho. Wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here on this forum. It's a very popular forum and I've been watching your podcasts. They're very high quality. So it's an honor.
Thank you. And when I think about marketing and branding, especially when we discuss with our portfolio companies, we have these weekly governance calls where we spend a lot of time with founders. And there are so many terms which get thrown around. People use branding, positioning, and sales. And what do these terms mean and how are these terms different? First, I would like you to think or tell us from a perspective of a new brand.
Well, at the fundamental core, it's, trust. Whatever you're doing is to build trust, especially if you're a, new brand, a startup or something like that. So people have to trust you to not just buy from you, but, listen to you, take you seriously, look forward to your mails, even open your mails, if there is trust, there's a very high chance of, even a total stranger listening to you, buying into your pitch, your offer or whatever it's called. So at the heart of all branding or, there are a lot of these buzzwords. That's all fine, but it's basically a trust building, long-term trust building exercise. And there are several phases and there's a lot of architecture within it, but that's okay. I mean, you don't have to follow the entire architecture, but you should always keep in mind, here is a consumer and should be a long-term consumer. How do I build trust, So that's the fundamental pillar on which everything else rests, all buzzwords rests.
Right. And I think it's more challenging for a new brand because the awareness is not there, right? So the trust is not easy. When you go probably pitch your customer online or offline, when they interact with you, that trust is basically you are at 0 at that point.
Yes, that's right. So which is why a lot of startups, don't sell too heavily right in the beginning. They're not in your face saying, here's my product, here's the discount, come and buy. So people tend to avoid doing that. There are several trust building issues. It could be a roadshow, it could be like these SaaS companies do, just try it for free for 90 days or, whatever. I mean, there is no risk to the buyer. And of course, there are a lot of other things also, like outside the sale. I mean, if you look at the classical marketing funnel, there's awareness. So, how do I make you aware that I'm a product that you should consider? You will not get fooled or cheated or whatever it is. Okay, so that awareness is very critical. And there are 50 different things you can do depending on the category that you're in.
Right. And I was just before this episode, I was looking at your background and I was thinking about, well, you have worked for FMCG giants like Coke, and now you're on the public sector side. How has your worked and the audience evolved, right? Because the nature of campaigns you do for somebody like PepsiCo or Coke, I think there is a lot of legacy and awareness already with those brands, right?
So, as you use the word legacy, so, legacy brands, I mean, historically, I mean, you go back 10 years, 20 years,
Right.
At that time there was the internet from the late 90s or something, but it was still very analog kind of thing, banners and mailers and so on. The internet, the consumer internet, I mean, the two-way conversation that is really took off after 2015, I think, the Geo launch, where broadband became very, the internet became very accessible and very cheap. And as you probably know, India has the cheapest broadband, costs and at fairly high speeds in the world. So all that happened recently, but when I was at Coke, this is, 2010, 11, 12. So it was still pretty a Coke or Gillette or, all these things, I mean, right from the mid-90s. So it was still very analog, very traditional kind of approach. While one can say that, finally the brand, how you build a brand has not fundamentally changed. There is a new medium called digital and it's all pervasive and you have to put digital at the core. That's fine. But the consumer is still the same. The consumer's instincts, why should I buy this phone and not the other phone? It's kind of similar to what it was even 50 years back. It's a mix of utility, there is aspiration, there is, all these things put together.
And how does, as a person who is advising these brands, how does your work or your approach is different when you're thinking about a consumer brand versus a government initiative?
Well, finally, it's the value. So even if it's a Coca-Cola, there is a certain value that comes to the table. It might be very intangible, it might be very aspirational and so on, but the value must be very clear to the consumer. Similarly, with the government, for example, I was at MyGov, the citizen engagement platform. Why would people come to MyGov regularly? We had to answer that question. For example, during COVID, MyGov was the voice of truth. So any news that went out to the masses, to the public, so we kind of did a lot of infographics and video and, podcast and stuff like that. So there was some value people saw in us, which is why, I mean, even today, if you fly some Indigo Airlines, the do's and don'ts are from COVID time. My team did it. It is still there. Maintain a distance, wear a mask, all that graphics, whenever I take, Indigo, I see it on the website, it's the same. So there's some value that people see in it, right? So which makes people come. Similarly, right now, we are kind of an e-commerce open network, right? So what is the value that people, smaller sellers, hyper-local buyers see in us? It must be very clear. There must be a differentiator between us and the other, monopolistic, e-commerce platforms, which is why people will come to us. So there has to be, what we call, the classic right brain, left brain thing.
Correct.
I believe there has to be a rational reason. It cannot be, even if it's fashion, which is completely aspirational, and we know how people sell, markups of 10,000% and so on, but still there's a value. I mean, the reason people buy let's say Mercedes-Benz over whatever, something else, is very clear. There is this very strong idea of aspiration, how I will stand out, which is a very rational process, even though it's very intangible and aspirational.
So the need, there is this theory of the jobs theory, right?
Right.
That every product or a service which I am consuming or you're consuming is serving a particular job in our life, whether that's an emotional need or any other need, right?
Yeah, it's your again your classic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So where does your product fit in? Is it a roti kapda makan kind of thing, or is it you're kind of self-actualized and you need a Prada to make a statement? I think I don't need a Prada, but I mean, there are people who do, and so there is a very rational structure to, branding.
Right, right.
Yeah.